Hey everybody, thanks for downloading the podcast. This is episode number 3 of Music Speaks, featuring a former bandmate of mine from when I lived in Florida, named Jack Connor. Jack played bass and was the co-vocalist for the band Zebrageist while I was living down that way, and became a very good friend of mine. We had a lot of things in common, both inside music and outside of music. So, and it was also kind of funny because he reminds me so much of Curt. They're into almost the exact same things as far as wrestling and music, and they both play bass and sing, so it was really cool to put those two together for the first time. So let's go ahead and get on into it. Here is Music Speaks podcast number 3, featuring Jack Connor of Vertebreaker.
In the name of all that I've held dear, I'm not immune to fear. Paralyzing, but I must pull through. The 0 hour is near. The 0 hour is near.
So what's going on? So you're how often are you playing out then now?
I just played out last night, and we've been playing out like every weekend this month. My band has. It's been kind of crazy. Business is definitely picking up a little bit down here. I don't. I mean, there's, you guys know how it is with playing original bands. It's not like a set schedule or anything, but I mean, we're definitely doing okay as far as that goes.
Nice. Nice.
So you've played pretty much everything but drums in a band.
Well, I mean, I've played a little bit of guitar in the band. I mean, define playing guitar. I'm more of a functional guitar player. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why people, I remember when I was getting this band together, they're like, Jack, are you going to play guitar in the band? I'm like, no, I would rather find 2 guys who are really good than me who is just adequate at best.
Yeah, it is cool seeing you as a frontman because, I mean, when Jack and I played together in a band called Zebrageist where he was bass and sort of a second vocalist. I wouldn't really say you were a backing vocalist. You did harmonies, but you did some lead work too. So it's been interesting to see like the YouTube videos and hear the recordings and everything where you were just singing.
Yeah, it's the funny thing about Zebrageist, and I don't know if I want to get on a tangent on this before we start recording or whatever.
Oh, we're recording. We've been recording.
You son of a bitch.
I was half wondering too. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, is this the intros, and then we're gonna, because we didn't really say, hey, welcome to the podcast.
I pulled a Chris Hardwick on you guys. Like, if you ever listen to the Nerdist podcast, he's like, oh yeah, we're recording. They're like, oh, really? Oh, I didn't even know.
You definitely pulled a Nerdist right out from under me.
So by all means, get into it. Let's what you were going to say with Zebrageist.
Enjoy your burrito, everyone.
Nice.
No, the funny thing about that band is that, that was a situation where, joining a band that already had, some songs, and already, started writing on their own. I'd come in, and I remember talking to Russ from day one, and be like, hey, I've got some ideas, and I can sing as well, and maybe I was hoping to get let's eventually work up to sort of a Lennon McCartney kind of vibe, because he played guitar. It just it didn't happen right away, but I think eventually, just from being patient and kind of figuring out what his style was and coming to an agreement sort of towards the end, eventually I started taking lead on a few songs here and there, and just kind of worked out. And I think to this day we still have a pretty good vibe whenever we sit down to write together.
Most definitely. So what were some of the Zebrageist tracks I remember that where your vocals were more prominent?
I think At the Speed of Sound. I think that was that was probably the only one we recorded where I actually took the lead vocal on. I'm trying to remember the name of it, but it was like, I remember there was this one line of saying, it's like, the ghost of a memory, you promised to let me go. God, I'm trying to remember the name of that song. It's been so long since I've really jammed out with that. But you know, there were a few songs where I tried to, you know, add as much flavor as I could while, you know, kind of concentrating on the bass as well. So. But that was kind of the thing with Zebrageist from the start. We had several guys who could sing, several guys who could write, and you know, it was sort of like almost like a modern like alternative meets the Beatles kind of vibe we were going for. So I don't know if we necessarily achieved that, but it was what we were hoping for at least.
I would say definitely it was it had that kind of vibe to it, especially me coming into it, you know, being in a band with 4 dudes who all could sing, all could write, and you know, I'm like, I just beat these drums here in the back. I felt inadequate in that regard.
Well, you know, I mean, it's funny you say that. We never actually, I mean, because you know, Brian, who was in the band before you, he didn't sing either. So we were always hoping at least one of you guys could pull Ringo and start singing.
And boy, did you jackpot with Eric, let me tell you.
Oh, I've heard. It's amazing.
You do not want to hear me sing. If you keep tuned to future episodes of this podcast, we'll have our very first band that Curt and I were ever in detached. We're going to try to get our singer to come down and get all 3 of us in a room for the first time really since the band broke up. And if that happens, your treat will be my version of our hit song, put up the air quotes, Unbreakable.
Nice. You know, you say that, but I mean, you're not that bad, Eric. You know, when you do it, I think if you really took it seriously, you could probably be good at it. I'm just saying.
Well, thanks, man.
Don't sell yourself too short.
All right. I'll try not to. So you so initially I lived in Tampa Bay. That's where you were. That's where Zebrageist was based. But you've since moved on. Tell everybody who isn't familiar what you've been up to since the move from Tampa.
Well, since you moved, I think in February of 2012. Well, you were actually still in the band at that point, but I was living in on the east coast of Florida in a town called Melbourne. I was not the city in Australia, but it was also called. But yes, Melbourne, Florida was where I was living and working at the time, and you know, I lived there for about a year and a half, and during that time, I met the guys who eventually became my current band, Vertebreaker. And I think in November of 2013, I moved to Orlando, and now I moved even a little bit farther west of Orlando, to a place called Winter Garden, where my wife and I live now. I still work in Orlando, and the rest of the band is actually still in Melbourne. So I'm doing a lot of driving these days. But yeah, I mean, the band is still together, Vertebreaker, I mean, and so that's where I'm basically located now, sort of in the Central Florida area.
Nice. And I know that when you were working with Vertebreaker, and I don't know if Curt knows this, because, I mean, Curt's heard things of you and just passing and me talking about you and talking about, you know, the things we did in Florida, but talk about who produced your EP and what it was like working with that individual.
Well, Eric, as you know, our EP was produced by Brett Hestla, who many of you know from the band Dark New Day. He was the singer of that band. He was also the touring bass player for Creed for a couple years, sort of during the Weathered era. So I mean, he was playing with that band, which was sort of the biggest band in the world at the time, at the peak of their success. So those are some pretty impressive credentials, and he's produced a lot of other people, and he also sang for a band called Burgos Merlot back in the late '90s. So Brett's still around.
Then what our claim to fame was recording in the same studio as O-Town. That was pretty amazing.
Hey.
O-Town and Blink-182, we were like, oh my god, we've made it.
Hey, that's nothing to shake a stick at. That's
But that is awesome, man. I did not know that. That is a really cool tip. That's pretty sweet.
Well, that's the thing about living where we are, and thankfully the Central Florida area seems seems to be pretty friendly to our kind of music. I'm not sure why that is, but it's a big city, and a lot of people seem to like the rock out here, and we were lucky enough to be located relatively close to Brett Hestla's studio in Longwood, which is just east of Orlando. And he's always looking for clients and looking for business, and we managed to get together, save up the money, and went and did it. We did about 4 songs in about a week, and it was definitely a really cool experience. Brett is a genius. He's definitely a bit of a mad scientist. He's just a really funny, eccentric guy, but I mean, just so good at what he does. And as a singer, I mean, it was so cool to be able to work with him and bounce ideas from him back and forth, and even get him to sing backup on a few of the songs, and occasionally, put in some guitar lines and some keyboard parts as well.
That's pretty amazing. I wouldn't mind, having that contribution to the recording at all.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I can say that a guy who I'm fans with, recorded on my record. I mean, there's not many people who can say that. And just, going there and kind of picking his brain and just asking him about stories from the road and just hearing his experience, and it was crazy. It's really a shame that he's not playing live with anyone right now, because he's so talented. But I think he's kind of happy doing what he's doing and producing and taking care of his family. So I don't think he misses the road.
Yeah, I mean, if you're able to make a living doing music and have a home base that you're at most of the time, I mean, that's priceless.
Absolutely. I mean, he seems to have found a way. Hopefully he's saved his money from the road, from touring back in the day. But he seems to be doing good, and I would definitely recommend him to anyone who is either in the Orlando area or wants to travel down there and work with a great producer. He's awesome.
Yeah, I know. Actually, our friends in Chuck Schaefer Picture Show traveled down there. They worked with him. They had a tag team production team of Brett Hestla and Justin Thomas. And Justin isn't really a household name or anything, but he's worked on Alter Bridge's records and a couple of other fairly big name projects.
Okay.
And so, I mean, their newest EP came out absolutely fantastic, and like you said, heavily leaning on the vocal side of things. Like, the harmonies are perfectly placed, they're in all the right spots, and they're all the right notes, which is something that some people have an ear for, and having a producer who knows that is absolutely invaluable.
Absolutely. I mean, there are a lot of guys who are good engineers, but they don't necessarily understand where you're coming from a vocal aspect, and having someone who they don't necessarily need to be the best singer in the world, but I mean, Brett is awesome singer, by the way. But the fact that he actually knows sort of the mechanics of that and puts a lot of importance on that, and he kind of understands where you're coming from in terms of technique, and we had let him know right up front that obviously we wanted to get melodic vocals in it. That's something I've always been about, and so it's just stuff like that is invaluable. For me, I like having an extra set of ears, and it's something that really, having someone like that to help me out with in a way that not even the rest of the band would necessarily be able to understand. Because you might hear something and it'll sound great, but it's like, and I'm my own biggest critic, so I'll hear something and be like, I know when it's off. And so it helps to have someone else who kind of knows that as well.
Right.
For sure. So why don't we go ahead, pause for just a minute and play a Vertebreaker track. Jack, what song do you think, for people who are unfamiliar with the band, would be best to sort of give them an introduction to what you guys are all about?
Oh boy. Well, I guess I'll probably just go in the order of the record. I guess the first song on there is called New Sickness. It's sort of it's sort of an upbeat kind of. It's definitely mainstream sounding, very, very. I don't want to say pop, necessarily, but it's very catchy, very sing along, but it's still very heavy. And just the lyrics talk about, it's almost like sort of a mission statement, saying like, we like to take ideas from the old school and the new school and just make it into whatever it's going to be. So, yeah, I would go with New Sickness first of all.
All right. So, Curt, you tend to do the intros to songs, so why don't you go ahead and introduce this song?
For New Sickness, this is the first time I've ever heard this, so I'm really excited to hear the first song. And yeah, New Sickness, here we go. Let's hear it.
I got a brand new sickness and I just can't wait to infect your mind and body right out of the gate. I got a brand new sickness, but it's not a disease. No one will believe it till the whole world can see. I hear the talk about the state of things, how nothing's good as how it used to be. Well, I can't imagine how you possibly could get better as the doors and mouths are constantly closed. Infection, obsession, I no longer contain a rejection of depression. Sweating out like the plague. You can call this a new sickness, but I'm not the one who's diseased. Maybe if you took the time to rethink your life, you wouldn't take it out on me. I hear the talk about the present day, how what grows so just simply fade away. Well, who are you to go and disrespect those who paved the way for all that came next? Apathetic, the epidemic, burning like wildfire. A new nation, a generation, longing to be inspired. You can call this a new sickness, but I'm not the one who's diseased. So maybe if you took the time to rethink your life, you wouldn't take it out on me. You can call this
So that last song you heard was Embark by Zebrageist, and that took me back, man.
Yeah, no, I remember Russ and Jose and we had so much fun making that record. And, like, we didn't really even have a full-time drummer at the time. The original guy they used to play with, his name was Diego. Like, he had already, like, he was, like, kind of moving, kind of not. They weren't sure what was happening with that, but they got him to record the drum tracks for that at this studio where Russ's dad worked. And we just spent months in like the fall of '09 just recording that, and mainly at like Russ's apartment. And it was amazing the sound we got out. I mean, Russ is a genius when it comes to that sort of thing, just mixing and just getting the right sound and just especially for like a home recording. It's I mean, I'm still blown away by how well that record turned out.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, he is truly a master of doing a lot with a little. Like, the setup that he had was like a cable from this type of setup, a mixing board from over here, half an audio card over here, and he managed to rig it all together to where it works and sounds really good.
He's like a MacGyver or even a MacGruber when it comes to this sort of thing. So he's a talented guy, and he's one of my best friends. So, we just had a blast making that record.
It's hilarious. You might hear like some cutting in and out when you're listening back to this podcast, and just because we're trying to overcome some technical difficulties. Kurt's up near Hiram, Ohio, which is up near Cleveland. Jack is in Orlando, Florida, and I'm in Newark, Ohio, near Columbus. So we're doing this all on Skype over internet, and every time, when you're doing a video call, it'll show you who's talking on the screen. If it'll switch back and forth between the people. And every time Curt is the main guy in focus, it shows this old school picture of him just like flashing gang signs or something. Jack, do you see the picture I'm talking about?
No, I don't see it, but I really wish I did because it sounds amazing.
Do you actually see Curt?
No, I just see like a blank picture, just like a generic, just blank Skype pic.
Nice.
It's probably because maybe like we're not like Skype friends. We're not Skypers. I don't know. Is that a thing? Is that a problem? Like with Skype?
We need to fix that.
Do some Skype training one-on-one. Just like be like, all right, can you see me now? Yes, I can. And that'll be like, all right, we're good.
Like, I mean, I want to do that just to see this picture in question. So
it's really not that bad. I mean,
I wonder if I can do a screen share, and we'll see if we can make this happen. But in the meantime, we should probably get back to actually podcasting and talking about something,
your listeners are loving this, by the way.
Yeah, they are so happy right now.
So great on an audio podcast to have this chat.
Oh, this is so weird. This is where we need to prepare a little better.
What's the fun in that?
Yeah. So Jack, one thing that we have done with some of our previous guests is gone back and gone way, way back. So when did you first start performing or playing music of any kind?
Playing music of any kind? It's hard to tell, really. My mom was she taught violin for a long time, and my sister played violin as well. I think both sides of my family, there's always been music, sort of in the house. I was around like 8 years old, and I played the cello in my school orchestra for a couple years. It didn't last for too long, but for a couple years, it's like kind of where I got that foundation. Mainly because, my mom would take my sister to violin lessons, and I would see kids playing cello, and I'm like, oh, that looks kind of cool, at least. And so they were figuring, like, oh, well, that'll give him something to do. And so that's, so I started doing that. Fast forward a couple years, I wasn't really playing anything. There would be a couple years where I would be in plays, and I would, like, sing in the chorus and just, like, be in, like, plays and musicals and stuff like that, because I think when I was young, I wanted to be an actor, but I didn't want to be like a Broadway guy. I wanted to be Batman, basically. But there weren't too many opportunities at the time, so my mom and dad were like, "Hey, go out for a few plays. You could do that." So I could do that, and and I knew I was able to sing, But I don't think it really started like getting serious about it until I was 13. And you know, I knew I wanted to do, I knew I wanted to play in a rock band. Um, I remember talking to like a bunch of my friends at the time, and I don't think anyone I knew played bass. So I figured, I'm like, oh well, that sounds easy. I mean, that's probably easier to do. I've got the cello background, so that kind of lends itself well into that. And I started taking lessons from there. And I was like in around like seventh, eighth grade, and it wasn't, and kind of all through high school, I had played bass in like the jazz band at my high school, and that was where I like really started getting some good experience. Started like playing out for the first time, and just learning like different styles of of playing and being able to play by ear, which was always a big thing. I would just like sit in my room and like play along to like Metallica or Kiss or whoever I could get my hands on. In addition to that, and then playing like jazz in high school and stuff like that. So, but I don't think my first like real band that actually started playing out was until I was a sophomore in college, and that band was called Lives Page. I was with those guys for about a year and a half. I was on bass, and I sang a little bit of backup, for them, and that was really where I like really started like being like active in the scene. And it's hard to believe that was like I was like almost 10 years ago now.
Yeah, it's funny how time flies like that sometimes. Like Curt and I were talking in our first episode, like we've been playing music over half our lives at this point, and it's just amazing to think of that. Like I've been playing music longer than I have not been playing music.
Yeah, it's funny. You don't think about that sort of thing, and I know a lot of guys who I used to play with back then who don't play anymore. And it's funny because like I'm 30 now, and people are thinking like, oh well, I mean, I thought by this time I would feel different about it, or I would just kind of like not really care about it as much. And I still love it. I still love doing what I do, and I don't have any delusions about do I necessarily think I'm going to make it big? Probably not, but I mean I don't. I definitely have more experience. I'm better at this now than I was when I was 20. I still have that. You still have that. That desire inside you that burns. You still love getting up and playing. It's still such a release for me, and I'm glad that I'm still able to do it. I managed to stay in school. I haven't quit my day job yet, and I'm able to work during the day and play at night. It's a beautiful thing, and certainly I still enjoy it. I still love writing. I still love being able to express myself that way, and I'm still a fan. And there aren't a lot of guys that I've played with over the years that I can genuinely say that about.
Yeah, that's why we like are doing this podcast, because we love it, and even if we're not playing as much as we were, it's just a way that we can, just meet up with people that we've played with in the past, people that are playing right now, just kind of get local music back to where, we've loved it, since we've started playing. And I mean, we kind of had the same thing when we started playing. It was just that excitement of putting a song together, making, something out of nothing, taking what we've learned and constantly progressing, and just like you said, now at 30, what you've become, from the time when you were 20, and you've taken everything that you've learned from all your bands that you've been in, and really have expanded as far as a musician goes, and it's hard not to be excited about that, and to keep and to stop playing. I mean, me, every time I go a while without playing, I mean, I instantly, when I go see another band play, I mean, I you can't not get that itch to want to like get back on stage, play in front of a live crowd. And it's not about making it, it's not about getting a record deal anymore. It's more about just, I love getting up there and doing what I've been doing, like Eric said, for more than half our lives. So I mean, it's a great feeling. There's nothing like it. So
Absolutely. I mean, I've always enjoyed playing live probably more than I have like been like in this like I've always enjoyed the playing out aspect of it more than recording even. I mean, I like recording. I like being able to create something new. I mean, it's sometimes it's more enjoyable than others because you're stuck in a studio for hours on end, and it's a tedious process. But I mean, I do like having a finished product. But I love playing live. I
That's
really
another thing. That's another thing, man. Me and Eric chalk another one. Me and him alike, because I am a live person much more than a studio person. Like when I'm playing live, I'm much more comfortable. I'm much more, engaged. I love doing that more. I like being in the studio as well, but Eric does not like me when I'm in the studio because all I do is just go. I don't know. I didn't like that. Did you hear that little? I just don't think I transitioned well into the bridge. I don't. Let me try that again. And Eric's like,
right.
"Hey,
It's like
come
I picked up and I should have picked down. So we got to scrap this whole track.
Right. It's so particular. Like you said, it's so particular. It's so. I mean, everything has to be exactly the way you want it because you hear every little any little thing you're gonna hear, any detail. But live, it's all about just the moment and even if you make a mistake, it's that live experience and just the people there and everything about it and just having them reacting to all your music that you've made and putting on this great show. And that's, to me, that is the biggest rush of being in a band. I mean, that there's nothing like that. I mean, I love putting a CD together, I love recording stuff and listening to the finished product, but to me the live show has always been the thing that's drawn me to wanting to be in a band. You know what I mean? So.
Absolutely. I mean, it's about having that connection with people out there and making a new fan one by one. And I'm very proud to say, that I've, certainly on a regional level. I mean, the band I'm in right now, Vertebreaker, has been. I mean, we've been having bigger reactions and better, such a huge connection, probably more than any other project I've ever done in my whole career, which I'm incredibly proud of. I mean, and people are, at least in the Melbourne area, are kind of starting to take notice of us a little bit. We're still kind of trying to work our way into Orlando a little bit. I mean, we're nowhere close to going on the road, as much as I would love to play for the great fans in Ohio.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows, man? Maybe one day, fingers crossed. But I mean, it's funny you said it's not about making it. I would still love to make it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can't deny that. But it's amazing isn't it like amazing how hard it is to just expand even in. I mean, like you said, in Florida, trying to just break out of the normal like city that you play in, or trying to do that, like, because we've played Cleveland, we've played multiple venues there. We always played in in Kent, which is a town that we has a lot of local venues. But it's amazing like how you get those set places that you can get a show at, you can pull a big crowd, but it is really difficult to try to break out of that and do either, like I said, not even just out of state shows, but even just shows that are maybe like an hour and a half, 2 hours away, 3 hours away, because I mean you're technically going in and nobody's heard you, and you're hoping you get on a good bill that has some other bands that are going to draw some people that hopefully take a liking to you. So I mean it's really hard to branch out and kind of expand the band. So
that's interesting, and I think a lot of different cities have that to a degree. I hearing you guys talk about sort of the scene that you guys grew up in and came up in, it just it definitely sounds like, I mean, and I don't know if this is true. I've never been to where you guys are, but I mean, it sounds like there's definitely a loyal sort of fan base, at least for our kind of music in the Ohio area, in Cleveland, and in Columbus. I mean, you definitely get that sense of like being in the Midwest, sort of that working class, really having a history of liking rock music and just going all the way up in the Midwest. I don't know if that's still the case or not, but that makes me think, it's like, man, if I was like in a touring band, like that's the kind of place where I would want to go. Those are the kind of people I would want to play in front of. So I mean, I don't know if that's the case anymore, but it sounds like it certainly was at one point. Would you say that, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was. Like I said, back when we were coming up, in 02, 03, local bands could pack the big venues in town and sell out, 1,000-2,000 people. Depending on that, you put a good lineup together, people would come out to see it. And that's one of the reasons that I really wanted to move to Florida, that was my impression of what was still going on there. And like playing in and around Tampa, not so much. Orlando, on the other hand, like I had seen bands like Traverser play there. When Empire would play out there, and they would draw tons of people. And it was one of those things where I'm like, man, this reminds me of Cleveland back in the day. So I'm like, I'm going to move to Florida. I'm going to find a band of awesome people, and we're going to fucking do it.
Yeah, I mean, and you and I did it for a little bit. I mean, we were jamming in Zebrageist for a bit. It's strange. I think the differences between Tampa and Orlando. I think, it's funny when people hear Orlando. I think they immediately think of like Jive Records and like Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and Britney Spears, that they kind of came from this area. But it's funny. I mean, like in terms of I guess in terms of the music business, it is down here. I think because it's a fairly big market. I mean, you have like Disney World and Universal and stuff, but you're also a couple hours away from Miami, which definitely not a big rock town, but it certainly has a lot of the music business in there. And there have been a few bands kind of from the like Trivium, for example. They're from Orlando. I think Matchbox 20. I think some of those guys were from here originally. And there was that little band called Creed that blew up pretty big. Which I see Kurt's picture right now. That just distracted me. That's amazing.
It finally pops up.
It randomly popped up mid conversation.
And he's in a nice conversation about the Orlando scene and bands from there, and then your picture is so awesome that it totally threw him for a loop.
Well, we can't have this get too serious now. Come on.
So would you throw Creed, and I think this may be one thing where the three of us agree on and most people don't, would you throw Creed in those bands that you like that people give you crap about?
Eric, I can't, for the life of me, I mean, I can't believe the amount of crap that I have taken for liking that band over the years. It's like even to this day, and people were like, I hate Creed. I'm like, really? Like, when's the last time you've even heard them on the radio? Like, what are you talking about? Like, do you even know any of their stuff? No, but like, it's one of those things where it's just, look, music is subjective. I get that not everybody's going to like the same thing, but I just think it's ridiculous when certain people like to hate on bands because it's the cool thing to do. And it really will have nothing to do with their music at all. And half the time, these people won't even know anything besides, maybe like the one or two songs that were the big hits that got overplayed back in '99 that aren't overplayed now. And it's like, I just, I mean, say what you will about, I mean, look, not everybody's going to like them, and that's fine. But I will defend that band to the death. They were one of my all-time favorite bands, and they continue to remain one of my all-time favorite bands, and have continued to have multiple projects that have sprung forth from that. They've opened the doors for a lot of good music to come out of there. I still maintain that they were if it wasn't for Creed breaking as big, I don't think you would have had Seven Dust and Disturbed and Stained and Shinedown and even Nickelback get the radio exposure that they did. Certainly in the late 90s, grunge was already dead by that point. There wasn't really a lot of mainstream rock music going on in 97, 98. And I would argue that Creed certainly had something to do with that. So, I mean, whether you're a fan of that generation of bands or not, or that style, you can't deny the success that those guys have had at their time. And you can say what you will about quality, whatever it is, but the numbers don't lie.
Amen. Very well said, man. You just said everything that I want to say when someone gives me shit for liking Creed or Nickelback or anybody like that. You've had a very well thought out response to that, so I'm gonna steal lines from that. Listen to it over and over again.
Please do.
And I've got to say, I mean, I completely agree as far as, Creed opening the door. I mean, and then I feel like now because Creed isn't played as much, I think people would agree Nickelback has kind of become the new Creed as far as that band that people love to hate, But But like, yeah, there's so many bands though, and you can't deny that, Mark Tremonti, Brian Marshall, like these people are in great bands now. Alter Bridge to me is a fantastic band, and there's so many great, songs that they made. I mean, even if they're considered, mainstream or radio or this or that, the fact that, like you said, music is subjective. If you're looking for more just technical music and this and that, yeah, it's not going to be your thing. But if you're looking for just something that, either, kind of touches you and just really, just really enjoy listening to it, there's nothing wrong with a band that is just fun to listen to. You know what I mean? And they came up with some catchy songs. I mean, they were one of the first bands that I saw live, like in a large, arena and everything. And I just remember being like, wow, this is so amazing. And, I think, Three Doors Down opened for them, and that just, opened the doors, like you said, to a lot of other bands that maybe, those same people didn't really dig. But, like you said, they sold really well. They made some great music. And, to me, I don't think that they, that any of us should get ridiculed for liking them.
No, I mean, well, look at it this way. When was the last, like, hard rock band that really managed to cross over at that scale? I mean, I guess you could argue that Linkin Park and Nickelback have done that during the 2000s, but, there aren't that many of them.
Right.
And I think it's a lot easy. I mean, it's very easy for people to do that with any kind of hard rock band or quote unquote metal band that actually, has that crossover potential. Because, let's be honest, you hear from a majority of musicians who, don't want anything to do with, commercial music or mainstream exposure. And, so I think that in itself certainly contributes to that. And, it's funny, like, you mentioned, some of the other projects that have sprung forth from that. I have heard fans of Alter Bridge say that they hate Creed. I'm not joking, and I'm like, you realize that 3 of the guys in that band were also in Creed, right? You do realize that if it wasn't for this band, this band would not exist. and I mean, I guess I understand like having a preference between like Scott's voice versus Miles's voice. I mean, they're 2 different voices. Very different. I think it's kind of ridiculous to really even compare them because it's 2 different kind of styles and 2 different kind of songs. And I can see having preference over one or the other, but like people just like get just like ridiculous in the amount of hate that spews forth from that. And it's, I mean, at a certain point I used to get mad about it, but sometimes I just can't even take it seriously half the time. Some of the outbursts that these people have, it's just ridiculous, and half the time they don't really even know what they're talking about anyway.
Yeah, and I don't know that it's necessarily, like you were talking about the bands that have the crossover appeal. It's really anybody in hard rock or heavy metal that gets popular, it seems to be looked down upon. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah, like, I mean, you look at Avenged Sevenfold. There's absolutely nothing wrong with Avenged Sevenfold. I mean, they are a fantastic band. They're amazing players. They write great songs. Yet the fact that they are like the headlining band of our generation, of like this generation, just makes them a very large target for some people.
Exactly. I would almost argue that Avenged Sevenfold hasn't crossed over enough as it could. I don't think it's quite. I mean, they're headlining arenas now, which is awesome. I don't know if they're necessarily at that household name status yet. Like, it's funny, going back to Creed, my 80-year-old grandmother knows who Creed is. I mean, it's funny with the, like, sort of the Alter Bridge debate. I never mention that and be like, oh, Creed, those are the guys who, that's the band that the guys in Alter Bridge used to play for, right? You don't hear that.
No,
not usually.
But, getting back to Avenged Sevenfold, though, yeah, I can't. Again, I think it goes back to these people who want to keep these bands sort of in their back pocket. I know Korn has gone through the same thing, and certainly, I think as bands grow and evolve, they change their sound a little bit. But at the end of the day, they're still the same band. So I don't know. I mean, it's a matter of opinion, like I said, and I'm sure there'll be You know, this is going on the internet, so naturally, I'm sure I'm going to get trolled to death because of this. But yeah, I mean, look, it is what it is, and you either like it or you don't. I love Avenged Sevenfold. I mean, they're one of my favorite bands as well. They're incredible. They deliver every time for me, and yeah, I mean, what more can you say? They're an amazing band.
I've still never seen them live. I'm still waiting to see them. I've seen. There's been a lot of concerts or different festivals I've gone to, and every time I go, like Rock on the Range and stuff, always the year that they're not playing. You know what I mean? I've always seemed to miss them. So
I'm lucky enough to where I have seen them enough to seen them with three different drummers.
You saw him with Portnoy?
I saw them once with Portnoy during the Nightmare tour. That was awesome.
Man, I would have loved to have seen that.
And of course, with the late great Jimmy the Rev Sullivan, I saw them I saw them with him twice. That was great. And it's it's a shame, that he's gone so soon. But I mean, and their new guy Aaron Illige, I mean, he kills it. I mean, he plays exactly the way that Jimmy did. So. He's a short guy, though. You can't really see him above the drum kit. He's a little guy.
You couldn't really see the Rev either, I remember, because he always stacked the drums like really high and angled in front of him to where it covered up most of his face. You just see his hair flailing every now and again and his arms when he'd do the stick crosses.
It was enough to make Peter Criss blush.
Ah, yep.
But yeah, I mean, Avenged Sevenfold is awesome. It's funny you mentioned a lot of new bands, and you'll hear a lot of like the older guys saying it's like, oh man, there are no more good rock bands anymore. Yes, there are. You just need to look for them.
Agreed.
I mean, I'm sure you talk about crossing over and bands crossing over and getting hate. I know probably Five Finger Death Punch is probably taking a lot of heat right now.
Yeah, and I admittedly am not much of a fan of Five Finger Death Punch. What really rubbed me the wrong way about that band, because I like their first record a lot, and I like some of their songs, but their fans at Rock on the Range, Curt can attest to this, their fans were awful.
Really?
Yeah, Curt, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. No,
Yeah.
it's no, I was just listening. Yeah, when we saw Five Finger Death Punch, it was yeah, it was one of those things that their fans definitely, they were just kind of there for them, and they were just kind of like not like I said, not to label them or anything, but I mean they just seemed like that was all they were excited about. They weren't excited about anyone else, and they're just like walking around just like Five Finger Man and just like pushing each other. Like I think one dude just started a mosh pit with me before they even started. I'm like, I'm like, dude, all right, I get it. You like Five Finger Death Punch.
Right.
But then Five Finger, they come out and they bring their tanks on the stage, and and like I said, I mean they are huge for a lot of people. So I mean they are definitely reaching out and getting the fans that like them and stuff. And I do not mind some of their songs as well. I think some of their songs are pretty catchy and everything. But I'm kind of with Eric. They're not my favorite, but
I agree. I mean, I think a lot of their songs and lyrics are a little bit hit or miss for me, but those guys they're fantastic musicians. You can't take that away from them.
Right. And they put on an energetic show. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, they do not, for the people that are excited to see them, and even the people that are just kind of there. I mean, they're not bored watching them. You know what I mean? They put on an entertaining show. Absolutely. So you got to give them credit for that too.
One thing about them though that kind of made me look a little sideways at them. There was this YouTube video going around, I should say, and I forget where they were playing. They were playing some kind of festival, and I guess they had a bunch of fans that were on the side stage, and they had a couple of little kids there. And I think this went viral. I think this went on the news. But it's like they were singing one of the songs, and they brought some of the kids on to sing the song with them, and Ivan was screaming burn mother effer, and it's just like, dude, they're little kids. Why are you screaming that at them? Look, I get there's going to be some language that's going to fly around, these kind of things, but it's like, really, dude, you're going to scream burn mother effer at a little kid? It's like, it's like, I'm pretty sure Led Zeppelin never had to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they managed to do quite well without having to pull any antics like that.
Right. It's that to me just seems like lazy lyric writing, really.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with that band cranks out records like left and right. Like whoever's writing the music for them is writing songs faster than he can write words for, because some of his lyrics are very well thought out. They deal with interesting topics, and then it seems like when he needs to write something to fill in the blank, it's just like, I'm a tough guy, fight me. And that's the type of songs that they go for.
It's like, hey, Ivan, we need to burn mother effer in there. Oh, okay, got it. No problem. Done. Put this out.
What was Eric? What's that one lyric where it was something like for an eye? What was that? What in the first album? Do you remember that line? It was something like, it was something like an eye for an eye, a fist for a fist, blood for blood. You remember that part where he's like talking?
Oh yeah, that they do that in their cover of Bad Company, I think.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, it's right at the end there when he's just like, eye for an eye, blood for blood. I'm like, okay.
All right, yeah, I'll go with it. Yeah, whatever. I've heard worse lyrics. I'll put it that way. So it's not terrible.
There's always some worse lyrics out there. So
of course,
if you look at some notebook paper from me, I mean, from high school, that's probably the worst. So
the funny thing is though, and I'm not saying that they're the worst, but I mean, I would rather hear the worst hard rock band any day than even some of the best of some other genres out there. I'll put it to you this way: as long as there is a song that called Peanut Butter Jelly Time, as long as that song exists, then your band will not be any worse than that. So,
what are your least favorite genres? Like, what are the genres that you just have no interest in and you just can't stand?
For the longest time, and I'm not this way anymore, I didn't want anything to do with rap music. Period.
Right.
That was when I was younger. That's not the case anymore. I've grown older, I've matured. I just, to me, I always saw that. I'm like, it's like, and of course, when you're 13, you draw lines in the sand and be like, no, I'm a rocker. I don't want anything to do with that hip hop crap. So, needless to say, when Kid Rock and Limp Bizkit came out, I was a bit conflicted. But, so I wasn't quite on for that. You know what turned me around on that, though? The first Linkin Park album, Hybrid Theory.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's not every day that you hear an album that changes your perception on an entire genre.
Yeah.
That's what that album did for me. And I think from then on, I kind of loosened up as far as like the rap rock and even some of the hip hop stuff goes. And I mean, truthfully, I don't really hate on any genre of music these days. I mean, the funny thing is, I think when you're in high school or in middle school, like you're surrounded by the stuff you don't like. Nowadays, there's so much music out there, and there's so many ways of getting your music out there. It's just, if I don't like something, I just listen to something else. It's so easy. So I really don't, I'm really not about like hating on anybody anymore, truthfully. That's just not me.
It's a great outlook to have, man. I mean, like you said, I mean, and we spent, a while talking about things that we don't like about music, but, the focus really should be on everything that's good and everything that music does that's good and things that are enjoyable about it.
And hey, there's good stuff no matter where you look. There are all kinds of talented people out there. And, some of them get discovered, some of them don't. But, I mean, no matter what genre, you're in, there are talented people there. And there's good stuff no matter where you look. So I really don't, I really don't hate on any genre of music. I mean, we're all musicians, we're all artists out there. So, I want to support everybody. I want everybody to make it.
Definitely. But what are some of your favorite underground bands? Like bands that either have come and gone that never really got their chance to shine, or bands that are currently going that are trying to make it that you think people should know about?
Let's see. You mentioned Traverser down here in Orlando. There's they're good friends of mine. Soul Switch as well. In terms of bands in my area, we played with a few good bands last night. We played with a band called Breathing Theory. There was There's Soul Switch Traverser. Mr. Bella is another really good Florida band out here that I played with years ago. As far as nationally, there's I mentioned Burn Halo earlier. They're from Orange County, California. I Empire, obviously, I don't know whether they're still active. Whoever Donald Carpenter is singing for now, because he's awesome.
Yeah, he can sing pretty much over anything and make it work. Like, Submersed was such a diverse band, but never really tinged too heavy. And then I Empire comes out, and I remember one of the first I Empire songs I heard was Ignite, and it's just so heavy riff-wise and music-wise that I'm like, I don't know how Donald singing over this is going to sound, and it was incredible.
Absolutely. I mean, he's just a powerhouse vocalist, and there, like I said, there's so many good bands out there, and it's tough to name them all. I actually wish I prepared a little bit more. There are a lot of them. I apologize if I left anyone out who knows me. I'm so sorry. There are a lot of good bands that are kind of bubbling up under the surface.
Curt, what about you? What are some underground bands that you think people should know about?
On the local scene, I mean, I just went and saw a band last night, Lower 13. It was really good. They were a three-piece, and probably one of the best bass players I've seen in a long time, and they were just unbelievable how much sound they put out being a three-piece. I mean, it was really cool, and especially, like, me and Eric used to be in a three-piece. That was our first band, so, like, I always get pumped when I see one, especially one this good, because they were doing, I mean, just some crazy harmonies and solos, and the bass player was he was doing so many high tones and just things like that, to where, it pretty much just opened up their whole sound so much more than just, playing root notes and stuff like that. I mean, he was just fantastic. And then, I mean, kind of on the national scene, but definitely not as well known as some of the mainstream bands we've talked about. Me and Eric love a lot of bands that are either from Australia or from just different countries and different things. Like, we're really big into bands like Dead Letter Circus are, fantastic. I mean, Eric got me hooked on them. And, bands like Soilwork, I mean, they're pretty big, but
yeah,
still a lot of people, don't know them as much as bands like Killswitch and everything, you know what I mean? So,
absolutely.
And if you like bands like Killswitch Engage, you need to be listening to Soilwork, because they are absolutely one of the most talented bands ever, because, I mean, they're just fantastic.
Absolutely, Curt. I mean, the last couple of years, I've actually gotten into Soilwork. I apologize for not mentioning them. Really good band out of Sweden. Again, I'm not really so much of like a death metal guy. Like, I mean, I prefer just like, clean vocals and everything. But I mean, their singer, Bjorn Speedstrid, I think is his name. Just amazing singer. I almost wish he would do a record of just all singing, just because he has such a great singing voice, and it's kind of interesting. Even when he does like the screams and everything, you can still like understand what he's saying and everything. So that helps. But yeah, I mean, those guys are just killer musicians and really cool melodies in there.
Right.
So I know you're a wrestling fan like me. Are you a Fozzy fan?
Oh, gee, am I a Fozzy fan? I mean,
love the Fozzy, man.
Jericho is like one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, as Eric knows and a lot of other people know. I mean, another funny thing is I have not made it to a Fozzy show, and I've had times where I could go, and something would come up or something like that, but their newer album that came out, I've heard some songs, and I really I love the cover that they did on it. Was really good. Yeah. That was
of course they would cover something like that, because it's Jericho.
I gotta say, and then I kind of feel like they kind of fall into the same thing where some of the lyrics are okay, sometimes a little cheesy at times, but they're a fun band to listen to, and they're a really talented band. I mean, that lineup is really skilled, and they put out some good stuff. So I mean, yeah, of course, I gotta be
It's funny you mentioned the lyrics. I'm not sure exactly what a stick it up your ass day is. I should have asked Chris that when I met him, but no, they're an incredible band, and
did you meet Chris Jericho at a show, or where did you meet?
I've met him a couple times at shows and autograph signings, and I kid you not, I actually went up and sang with them one time back in 2006.
Are you serious?
I am serious. I have the pictures to prove it.
And here I am thinking, you know what? I met Jericho, and it was at an autograph signing as well, and I probably had about 5 seconds to talk to him because they were just trying to get people through, and it was pretty packed. But I literally tried to get something out to him about like, dude, oh, what's up, man? And I had all these things like, because I know he was a bass player to start as well, just like me too. So I was going to be like, oh, I'm going to be that clever fan that knows his history and do this or that. And ultimately what it boiled down to was I tried to get my friend Andy to take a picture of us. And basically they wouldn't let him come and, get close enough to take one. So he was kind of out in the crowd. So the time that I got to spend talking to Jericho was me pretty much trying to show him where to look to take our picture. And that was it. And literally it ended and I go, that was the biggest just tragedy ever as far as meeting somebody, because it just sucked. I was like so disappointed like that we didn't have this awesome, moment. Because like I said, he's one of my absolute favorites, and especially like he's into rock and I mean I feel again like he's everything I kind of like, everything you like. I feel like we should all hang out sometime. So I think we need to call Jericho up and be like, dude, we gotta all hang out and go do something.
Well, it's funny. He has a Vertebreaker EP, and he loved the name. So, like, hey, Chris, if you're listening, give us a call, man. Come on.
If Chris Jericho's listening to our podcast right now, I am literally the happiest person in the world. So,
come on, Chris, you, me, and Kurt, let's do this.
We give a shout out for my boy DDP and DDP Yoga.
Oh, DDP is like that cool uncle I wish I had. Like he's just I love that guy. I've never met him, obviously, but he just seems like one of those guys I would love to hang out with for a day.
They've said he's just a super nice guy to meet too. They said he's a great guy.
I mean, God only knows like what kind of like hardcore diet he would have to put you on for like the DDP yoga deal, but I would be interested in trying that out. I do CrossFit, but I haven't tried the DDP yoga yet. But,
Eric, have you tried the DDP yoga?
Dude, I've been on the DDP yoga for like 6 months now.
Nice, man. How's that working out?
I lost about 10 pounds right away, and been maintaining that pretty much since. I mean, I'd like to lose more, obviously, but at this point, it's more of a diet problem for me than anything. But you feel great. It's not like super strenuous, but your heart gets going. It's very cardio oriented. Right on.
That sort of thing. Like I used to do like P90X and stuff, but I eventually fell off it just because it's like, and that's why I'm glad I'm doing the CrossFit thing, because I can go and like. I know that there's a certain time where I have to go. I know it's a certain, I can go to a class and be around other people. And like, if I was doing it kind of at home, I think there's a tendency to be like, oh, well, I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll do this and that. But, I think that way I'm a little more accountable. But that's really the only thing that's keeping me from doing DDP yoga at home. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just that it's not as structured and it's not mandatory.
Right. I mean, at least that's how I work as far as that goes. But I mean,
whatever works, man. Whatever keeps you active.
One of these days, I might have to try it. But yeah.
Yeah. And this is not a paid endorsement, mind you, everybody. The Music Speaks podcast is not sponsored by DDP Yoga.
Although, I mean, if DDP wants to sponsor you, then
yeah,
we'd be totally fine with that.
We'd be all right with that.
Dallas, if you're listening, let's, call Eric up. I mean, I'm just saying.
Give me a ring. Well, all right, guys. Yeah, I mean, this has been kind of cool, and I think we go ahead and wrap up here now. But Jack, we'd love to have you back on again sometime.
Dude, I mean, first of all, Kurt, it's really nice meeting you. I mean, Eric, you and I could talk for hours about a variety of topics. So please, I would love to come back and do this again, and hopefully your listeners enjoyed it too.
Definitely. I hope that they did as well. And I mean, most of the people that we've had on, our friends and our family have some familiarity with, but you are, I mean, you're known to me, you're known to a few friends of mine, but other than that, you're relatively unknown. So hopefully this will get you a few more sales out of Central Ohio for Vertebreaker. And let's go ahead and play one more Vertebreaker song to play us out, as they say.
All right. How about go with Obsolete? You can hear Brett's vocals on the chorus there.
All right, cool. And Curt, you do such a good job of introing these songs. Why don't you give us an outro to the podcast? And Jack, do you have any websites or anything you want to plug on the way out?
Yeah, you can find us on vertebreaker.net, on facebook.com/vertebreakerband. I think reverbnation.com/vertebreaker. You could follow us on Twitter at vertebreakerfl, as in the state of Florida. Or you could email us at vertebreaker@yahoo.com. And it's actually, make sure you spell it VERTE breaker. You'd be surprised how many people. That's the only thing. It's a bit of a mouthful, so people misspell it. But yeah, look us up on there, and hopefully one of these days we can make it up to Ohio and everywhere in between. But for now, we're based in Central Florida. But we're trying to get there. We wanna come and play for as many people as possible. So. But this is where it starts, man. Come and check us out on iTunes and cdbaby.com. You can actually buy a physical copy of our CD through there as well.
Dude, and thank you so much, man. And I will definitely sign us out here. But I want to also say thank you, and it's been awesome meeting you on here and finally getting a chance to talk and everything. And I feel like, Eric, do you think that we honestly have just had in the first couple of guests we've had on the podcast, I feel have had some of the most well-spoken, most just interesting, just conversations that I think more than I expected. So I'm really excited to keep it rolling. So thanks again, Jack. We really appreciate it, man.
Thank you, guys. It's really been a pleasure, and I can't wait to do it again.
Absolutely, man. We'll chat again probably in a few months here once we get things rolling. So we'll let Obsolete. Oh, I'm sorry, Curt. I almost stole your thunder. Go for it, Curt.
Oh, hey, whatever. We can both do it. But this is Obsolete coming out. Is that just the whole name, Obsolete, right?
Yep.
Okay, and this is Obsolete. Jack Connor from Vertebreaker, and this has been the Music Speaks podcast. So thank you so much for listening. We will talk to you later.
Peace.
Thank you, guys.
Disguise lives the ignorance and lies based on what they think they know. Condescension all around, smash my idols to the ground, second guessing every note. Inside I feel as if the world has been passing me by. Predicted winds of change, once familiar passion strained from the ghost of past romance. To be hated or ignored, that's the question. This I'm sure is the only circumstance. Yeah, I'll stake my claim to be sure you never forget my. The love for this I feel. tread nightly on the